Mornings always start the same way, like clockwork. Even after 85 years of life, my body refuses to sleep past 6. Not that I need an alarm. It's a habit that's become part of me, as ingrained as the lines in my face. The first thing I do, as always, is reach for Alita. I stretch my hand across the empty side of the bed, half expecting to feel her warmth. Then reality hits, sharp and bitter. She's been gone for 3 long years. A heavy sigh escapes me. The ache isn't as raw as it once was, but it's still there, a dull, constant reminder, more like a bothersome tooth than a fresh wound. I've learned to live with it. I swing my legs over the side of the bed and slowly stand, feeling the leather slippers Alita gave me for my 80th birthday. "To keep your feet warm, Eddie," she'd said, her voice soft, full of care. She always noticed the small things, the tiny details. I pull my robe from the chair and tie it around my waist. The fabric smells faintly of her, like a memory stitched into the threads. Next is the bathroom. I shave every day, though my gray stubble is hardly noticeable anymore. Habit. Discipline. I've always been precise, orderly in my work as a civil engineer, meticulous in my life. 40 years of drawing plans, calculating measurements, and leading projects leaves its mark. After shaving, I splash cold water on my face, the sting sharpening my senses for the day ahead. Downstairs, the kitchen waits. Our house, large and solid, stands proudly on its quiet street. Aldita and I bought it 35 years ago when I was promoted to lead project engineer. Back then, it was the outskirts of McKissport. Now, it's an upscale neighborhood. Real. Estate here has skyrocketed beyond imagination. I prepare breakfast, oatmeal, toast with jam, and a strong cup of tea. On weekends, Alita would make poached eggs or fresh pastries. I never learned her art, and why would I? Simple food is enough for me. After breakfast, I settle into the chair by the window, newspaper in hand. Electronic news is for others. I love the rustle of paper, the smell of ink, the feel of turning pages. I read mostly local news and science columns. Politics lost its interest long ago. Everyone promises the world and delivers nothing. The house hums with memories. Every corner speaks of the life I shared with Alita. Wedding photos, Norman's birth, his first day at school, his university graduation, all frozen on walls and shelves. A model of the Golden Gate Bridge sits on a side table, a gift from colleagues, for my 60th birthday. I led the redevelopment of the McKissport Industrial District, transforming it into a beautiful waterfront lined with restaurants and shops. There are also family photos. Norman with his wife Wendy, little Levitt. Norman inherited my love for precision and became an electrical engineer. He died 15 years ago in a car accident on a slippery road. Wendy survived him by only 3 years. The doctors said it was cancer, but I think she just couldn't bear living without him. Levitt was 16 then. Alita and I wanted to take him in, but he chose to stay with his aunt, Wendy's sister. Perhaps we should have insisted, but we thought stability would help the boy. Now he's 31, working as a middle manager at an industrial equipment company. Not bad, but always restless, never satisfied. 3 years ago, he married Lucine, a corporate training specialist, both ambitious, both meticulous. Since Alita passed, their visits became more frequent. At first, I was touched. I thought they genuinely cared, worried I might be lonely. But gradually, I noticed odd things. Levitt began studying the house as if appraising it. One day, I caught him eyeing my bookcase with old engineering reference books. "Grandfather, are these valuable?" he asked, eyes fixed on the leather. "Spines." "For me," I replied honestly, "they're history, some first editions." He nodded, but there was a flicker in his eyes, calculation, impatience. Lucine was no different, always commenting on the house's spaciousness and upkeep. "Edberth," she said last visit, "it must be hard for you to keep this place clean." "I manage," I replied. "Cleaning lady twice a week. Not much clutter to begin with. Yet she persisted. A house this big. At your age, climbing stairs. Exercise, I countered. Good for heart and joints. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I began to notice her glances at my savings book, too. One day, it was left carelessly on the living room table. Her eyes flicked down, quickly looking away, but I had seen enough. I am not naive. They are waiting for me to leave this world so they can claim the house, the savings, perhaps more. Or maybe they have a plan that doesn't require waiting, unpleasant but clear. All my life I've analyzed problems, calculated risks, found solutions. This is no different. Sundays I have lunch with neighbors Gerald and Maud. They are 10 years younger. But our friendship stretches back 25 years. Gerald, a retired architect, and Maud, a literature professor, have been my anchors. "How's Levitt?" Maud asked last Sunday as she served her beef and mushroom pie. "Busy," I shrugged. "They're planning a Bahamas vacation." "Not bad," Gerald chuckled. "And financially?" "Paycheck to paycheck, new car, designer clothes," I said. "Modern youth," Maud sighed. "Want it all now. We waited, saved first." "Do they visit often?" Gerald's eyes sharpened. "Since Alita died," I said. "How's their behavior?" Maud's voice became cautious. "Strange," I admitted. "Levitt studies the rooms. Lucine seems too interested in details. Almost evaluating." Gerald and Maud exchanged glances. "Edberth," Gerald said slowly, "do you know the Pattersons on Maple Street?" "Vaguely," I said. "Their son had a rare name?" "Ohio," Maud nodded. Patterson ended up in a nursing home, convinced by his son and daughter-in-law. They moved into his house immediately. He died 3 months later. Doctors said natural causes, but neighbors whispered, "He just gave up." Silence fell. The story mirrored my fears. "Be careful, Edberth," Gerald said finally. "If anything happens, we're here." On the walk home, their words lingered. Could Levitt and Lucine really plan such a thing? Could my own grandson betray me? At home, I opened the photo album, staring long at Levitt as a child. 3 years old, smiling wide on my lap. 8 years old, building model airplanes with me. A withdrawn teenager after his father died. Somewhere along the line, we lost connection. Perhaps I had been too immersed in work, too distant from family. Closed the album and moved to the window. The sun was setting, shadows stretching across the house. Shadows of past, present, and perhaps future troubles. I am 85, but I am not ready to give up. Not ready to let my own grandson dictate my fate. That night I made a decision. Observe, analyze, prepare. For what, I did not yet know. But one thing was certain. If Levitt and Lucine had plans, they would soon learn that Edbert Bird Whistle, old engineer, could still surprise them. Yesterday, Levitt called to say they would drop by this afternoon. "Just checking on you, Grandpa," he said, too cheerful, too practiced. And now, here they are. Lucine enters in a bright blue dress, holding a bag of fruit like a prize. "Edberth, we brought you peaches," she exclaims. "Juicy, melt in your mouth, full of vitamins." I smile politely. I don't like peaches. Too sweet. Alita knew this. Levitt, it seems, never cared or forgot. "Come into the living room," I say. "I've just made tea." They follow, and I notice Levitt's eyes scanning the antique. Clock in the hallway. The family heirloom from my father. Not valuable in money, priceless in memory. "How's your back, Grandpa?" Leth asked, sitting down in the chair. "Still bothering you?" "My back is fine. I've never complained about it. But Levitt asks it every time he comes in as if I were a frail old man in pain." "I'm fine," I answer. "And how's your new position? You said you were expecting a promotion?" Levitt's face darkens. "Postponed. He says they said they'd reconsider in 6 months, but it's all excuses. They just don't want to pay more." Maybe the economic situation is difficult. I suggest the director has a new Mercedes. Levitt snorts. What a difficult situation. Lucine puts a hand on his shoulder as if to reassure him. We'll get through this, darling, she says and turns to me. But honestly, Edberth, it's a little hard for us right now. The rent's going up, the car loan, plus we were planning a vacation this summer. There it is. A hint of financial hardship. They've been talking about it a lot lately, always with that special look on their faces, a mixture of hope and calculation. It's like they're checking to see if I'll offer to help. Life is getting more expensive. I agree neutrally. But you're young. You have everything ahead of you. Both of their faces tighten slightly. This is not the answer they were expecting. By the way Grandpa Levitt changes the subject, have you thought about hiring a domestic helper? Not just a cleaner, but someone who will be here all the time. Cooking, keeping track of medications, helping with household chores. Why, I wonder. I'm doing fine on my own. I can cook. I have only 2 medicines, and I don't forget to take them. But at your age, Lucine starts. At my age, people are still quite capable of taking care of themselves. I interrupt her. Especially if they've been on their own all their lives. We're just worried, Left says. You're here alone if something happens. I have a phone, I answer, and the neighbors stop by every day. Gerald and Ma are very attentive. Those old people. Left snorts. They're going to need help themselves. I cringe at this disregard for my friends, but I hold back. Gerald is 67 and Ma is 65, I say calmly. They're 20 years younger than me and in great shape. Left shrugs, signaling that he's not interested in the subject. Lucine takes the initiative. You know, a colleague of mine recently put her father in a wonderful nursing home, Sun Valley, maybe you've heard of it. It's a great place. Swimming pool, library, entertainment programs, and medical staff around the clock. Interesting, I say indifferently. How much does it cost? Not cheap, of course, admits Lucine. But the quality is worth it. And then, if you sell the house, she falters, realizing she said too much. Levitt gives her a warning look. I don't plan on selling the house, I say, looking her straight in the eye. I don't plan on going into a nursing home either, but thank you for your concern. There's an awkward silence. Lucine nervously fixes her hair. Left stares into his cup. More tea? I offer to lighten the mood. They both shake their heads. We should go, Levitt says. Lucine has a webinar tonight on new corporate training techniques. I walk them to the door. Lucine kisses me on the cheek, a dry, formal kiss. Left claps me awkwardly on the shoulder. We'll stop by next week, he says. If you need anything, call me. I nod and close the door behind them. Through the window, I see them walk to their car, a brand new SUV bought on credit. They don't look back. I return to the living room and sit down in my favorite chair. My thoughts return to Norman, my son and Left's father. Norman was a brilliant electrical engineer, more talented than me. He worked on smart home systems when it wasn't yet mainstream. I was proud of him, though I probably didn't tell him that. Often enough. We were alike, both passionate about our work, both a bit withdrawn. Alita was the link between us, the person who made us talk to each other about something other than work. When Norman died returning from a conference at night on an icy road, I was 65. I had just retired and had planned to travel with Alita. Instead, we plunged into mourning. Levitt was 16 at the time, a difficult age. He blamed the conference organizers, who didn't provide his father with a hotel for the night, blamed the highway authorities who didn't sprinkle the road, blamed the car manufacturer, all but the fate that had just taken his father. Wendy Left's mother became depressed. She had practically stopped leaving the house, barely able to take care of herself, much less her teenage son. Her sister Zelda offered to take Levitt to her, at least temporarily. Alita and I also offered to let Wendy and Levitt move in with us, but Wendy declined. Too many memories. she said. Norman was so proud of this house, I can't leave it. That's how Levitt ended up at his aunt's house. We visited him every weekend, tried to engage him in conversation, but he became increasingly withdrawn. That's normal. Elda said he needs time, but the time was getting shorter and shorter. 3 years later, Wendy was gone too. Lavoth, who had turned 19, refused to move in with us. I'm an adult, he said. I can manage on my own. He sold his parents' house, went to college for business management, and disappeared from our lives for a few years. He rarely called, came even less often. When Alda and I asked why he didn't come by, he'd say, busy, studies, part-time jobs, personal life. I understood him, or thought I did. We were reminding him of his losses, his parents, his childhood, his normal life. Maybe it hurt him to see us. Sometimes I think Alida and I should have insisted to take him in after Norman died, despite Wendy's objections, or after Shadid, despite his own opposition. Maybe then things would have turned out differently. But we didn't want to push. We believed that in time the pain would subside and he would reach out to us. In some ways, we were right. After graduating from college, Levitt did show up more often. But he was a different man. Cold, calculating, with a perpetual look of dissatisfaction on his face. I still feel guilty for not being able to give him more warmth and support. Couldn't replace his father when he needed him. I wallowed in my own grief, forgetting that it's even harder on a 16-year-old boy. Maybe that's why it took me so long to notice the obvious, the fact that Lavoth's visits only became more frequent after I mentioned my will in conversation. That was 3 years ago, shortly after Alida died. Levitt called to see how I was doing. In the conversation, I mentioned that I had been to the notary to update my will. The will? He asked with sudden interest. What's in it? I mean, who are you? It's all standard, I answered. The house, savings, personal belongings, everything is yours. You're my sole heir, except for a few charitable donations and small sums for Gerald and Ma. After that conversation, Levitt and Lucine began to visit every 2 weeks, calling more often. Always interested in my health, always offering to help, but I sensed a falseness in their concern. A couple months ago, I overheard them talking by accident. They thought I was sleeping upstairs, but I went downstairs to get a glass of water and heard their voices in the kitchen. How much do you think the house is worth now? Lucine asked. $1 million. $1.5 million. About a 200,000, answered Levitt. I checked similar listings plus his savings. He's always been a miser. He must have accumulated a lot. When do you think he'll agree to a nursing home? Lucine continued. I can't wait any longer. This apartment is driving me crazy, and Margaret has already asked me twice when we're going to move to a real home. Don't push it, Levitt warned her. He's a stubborn old man. We have to take it one step at a time. First, make him realize he's having a hard time on his own. Then, we should give him the idea of a domestic helper. If he refuses, and he probably will, then offer a nursing home as a rational choice. And if he doesn't, Lucine's voice sounded impatient. He will, Levitt answered confidently. I know him. He's always been rational. As soon as he realizes it's the logical solution, he'll give in. I hope it happens quickly, Lucine. I already have ideas for renovations. Everything here is so old-fashioned. I quietly went back upstairs without giving away my presence. The words of my grandson and his wife didn't surprise me. I'd already suspected something like that. But it's one thing to suspect, and quite another to hear with your own ears how your own flesh and blood plans to get rid of you. From then on, I watched their actions more closely, noticing how Leth casually drops comments about my neighbors who ended up in the hospital living alone, how Lucin leaves nursing home brochures in a prominent place. Just so you know about the options, Ed, their visits now seem to me like acts of aggression disguised as caring. Every question about my health is a check to see if it's time to act more forcefully. Every gift, peaches I don't like, a sweater that's too big for me, a book with small print I can't make out without my glasses, is a demonstration of how little they really know about me. Yesterday, Lucine brought in an article from some magazine about the benefits of living in communes for active retirees. "Look, Edbert," she said, pointing to pictures of smiling seniors playing golf and sitting in hot tubs. "Isn't this wonderful? Socializing, having fun, no worries about cooking or cleaning." "Very interesting," I said, putting the article aside. "But I prefer my home. It's where my memories are, my things. It's where I feel Alita's presence." "But Edbert," she insisted, "at your age, it's so important to be among people. Loneliness can lead to depression, even dementia." "I'm not lonely," I objected. "I have friends, neighbors. I read, watch documentaries, go to the chess club at the library once a week." Lucine looked at Levitt with an "I told you so" expression, and he entered the conversation. "Grandpa, we realize you're housebound, but think rationally. You're 85. What if you fall down or forget to turn off the stove or nothing like that has happened yet?" I interrupted him. "And I prefer not toppling my life around hypothetical disasters." "We just want you to be safe," Lucine said with that special fake smile of hers. "We love you, and we care about you." In that moment, I wanted to tell them the truth, to tell them that I knew about their plans, that I heard them talking in the kitchen, that I could see right through their fake concern, but I remained silent. The engineer in me decided it was better to gather more data before jumping to conclusions and taking action to see how far they were willing to go. So yesterday, when Lavoth called and said they were going to just stop by to see me, I realized the time for collecting data was running out, time to prepare for an open confrontation, because I heard something new in my grandson's voice. Confidence, as if he had made a decision and was ready to act. And that means it's time for me to do the same. Today is my 85th birthday. It is a strange feeling to celebrate a birthday when almost a century is behind me. I remember how I celebrated my 20th birthday, a young, ambitious engineering student with blueprints and calculations that I carried everywhere, or his 50th birthday, an established professional, a leading engineer with a reputation and recognition. We celebrated my 80th birthday with Alita at home with a few old friends. She baked my favorite walnut cake and gave me the very leather slippers I still wear today and today. Today, Levitt called in the morning and said, "Grandpa Lucine and I want to take you to a restaurant to celebrate your birthday. Wear something dressy." Now I'm standing in front of the mirror tying my tie. It's dark blue with a silver pattern, a gift from Aldita for our 40th anniversary. My hands are trembling a little, whether from age or a strange sense of foreboding. For the past few weeks, Leth and Lucine had been behaving in some particularly persistent constant talk about the nursing home. Booklets accidentally left in the coffee table. Questions about whether it's hard for me alone in such a big house. The doorbell rings at exactly 7 darn in the evening. Leth has always been punctual in that he is like me. I open the door. Leth is in a gray suit. Lucine in a black dress with open shoulders. They look too dressy, too formal for a simple family dinner. Something's wrong. "Happy birthday, Grandpa." Leth hugs me with exaggerated enthusiasm. "You look great for your 85. "Thank you," I reply, accepting a small box wrapped in shiny paper. "This? Open it at home after dinner," Lucine says quickly. "And now we have to go. We have a reservation." I grab my raincoat. It's chilly evenings in McKissport, even in summer, and go out with them. As we walk to their new SUV, I ask, "Where are we? Going?" "To the River Panorama," Lucine replies. "It's a new restaurant on the waterfront with a beautiful view of the river. Very elegant place. Elegant and probably expensive. An odd choice for Levitt, who constantly complains about financial difficulties." I sit in the back seat of their car. The interior smells like faux pine. The air freshener swings on the rearview mirror. As we drive, I stare out the window at the city floating by. McKeesport has changed over the years. When Aldita and I first moved here, it was an industrial town with sullen factories and smoky facades. Now, industry is gone. Modern business centers have sprung up, and the waterfront has become a trendy neighborhood with restaurants and galleries. I took part in a project to reconstruct the embankment in the 80s. Who would have thought it would turn into such a trendy place? Levitt drives in. Silence, a little more tense than usual. Lucine tries to keep the conversation going, talking about her successes at work and the new corporate training methodology she's implementing. But her voice sounds too chipper, too forced. Something is definitely wrong. River Panorama, turns out. To be exactly what the name promised. A restaurant with huge windows overlooking the river. Inside there are dim lights and live music. A pianist in the corner plays something jazzy and melancholy. Thema Tray escorts us to a table by the window. From our seat, we have a view of the river, illuminated by the lights of the embankment. It's beautiful. There's nothing to say. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" says Lucine as we sit down. "Edberth, do you like it?" "Very much," I reply, looking at the dark. "Water. Reminds me of a remodeling project I worked on in the 80s. Yeah, you've told me about it many times. Lev interrupts me quickly. "Let's order something special. Today is a holiday." He calls the waiter over and orders a bottle of champagne. Judging by the waiter's reaction, a very expensive one. I'm not a big champagne drinker, but I don't mind. After all, a birthday comes once a year. As we peruse the menu, I watch them. Lucina's nervous. She keeps fixing her hair and throwing quick glances at Lavoth. He's tense, too, but he hides it better. Only the white knuckles of his fingers clutching the menu give away his condition. The champagne is brought, opened with a triumphant clap. The glasses are filled with bubbling liquid. Levitt raises "Histo your birthday, grandfather. May the next year bring change for the better." We clink glasses. I take a small sip. Champagne is too sweet for my taste. Levitt and Lucine drain their glasses almost in one go. Nerves, I guess. Dinner takes place in a strange atmosphere. We discuss neutral topics. The weather, the news of the city, the last movie they saw. But underneath this mundane conversation, I can feel the tension building. They are cooking something that is supposed to happen after the main courses. The food is excellent. You have to hand it to them. I ordered the steak, medium rare with grilled vegetables, Levitt for salmon, Lucine for seafood risotto. We eat slowly, the conversation slowly drying up. By the time the waiter clears away the empty plates, we're practically silent. "Dessert?" suggests the waiter. "Absolutely," Levitt nods. "And another bottle of champagne, please." "A second bottle?" Now I'm pretty sure they're trying to work up the courage for something serious. We order desserts. I choose the apple pie. Levitt and Lucine share the chocolate cake. When a new bottle of champagne is brought, Levitt fills his glasses and stands up suddenly. "Grandfather," he says, raising his glass, "I want to make a toast to you, to your long and successful life. You've achieved a lot. A great career, respect from your colleagues, a beautiful home. You deserve a peaceful and comfortable old age." I nod, waiting for the rest of the story. "It doesn't take long, and that's why," Left continues, "Lucine and I have made an important decision." He pauses, looking at his wife as if seeking support. She nods, pressing her lips together in a strange smile. "Grandpa, tomorrow you're moving into a nursing home," Leva says firmly. "We've already paid for everything. You don't have to pack. It's all new. It's the best facility in the state with 24-hour medical care, recreational programs, a pool. You'll be under professional care. You'll be safe." I stare at him, not believing my ears. It's not that I didn't expect something like this, but such directness, such a cavalier attitude. It amazes even me, a man prepared for the worst. "Left," I begin. "I don't. Edberth, this is the best solution." Lucine interrupts me, leaning forward. "We spent so much time looking for the perfect place. comparing options. Sun Valley isn't just a nursing home. It's a real resort for people your age. You'll be happy there. You'll see. And you decided that for me? I asked quietly. Without my consent, grandfather, be rational, Levitt says. You're 85. Living alone in a house that big is a risk, and there you will be taken care of. And what will happen, Tommy House, I wonder? Even though I already know the answer. Levitt and Lucine exchange quick glances. We'll move there, says Levitt. We'll keep it in good condition. After all, it's a family inheritance. Finally, you'll be out of our way, Lucine suddenly blurts out and immediately covers her mouth with her hand as if she hadn't expected such words from herself. The restaurant suddenly becomes very quiet, or so it seems to me. The pianist continues. Top lay. Waiters scurry between tables. Customers talk. But for me, everything stops. Those words, "You will not interfere with my life," ring in my ears like a slap in the face. Left gives his wife a murderous look. What Lucine means, he says quickly, is that we'll stop worrying about you. Knowing you're safe, looked after, will take a huge load of anxiety off us, but the masks are already off. I see their real faces. Greedy, impatient, calculating. They didn't care about me. They want my house, my money. I'm a hindrance to them, an obstacle to what they want. A strange calmness comes over me. It's as if I've finally seen the truth I've long refused to acknowledge. And it's a relief. No more illusions, no more doubts. I rise slowly from the table, leaning on its edge. Not because it's hard for me to get up. It's just that I want this moment to be imprinted on their memories. An old man squaring his shoulders in the face of betrayal. Okay, I say quietly but firmly. You've decided everything for me. You paid for, organized, planned my life, my old age, my future. I pause, watching their reactions. Leth looks wary. Lucine looks slightly startled. They were clearly expecting a different reaction. Maybe tears, outrage, even anger, but not this icy calm. Then my will won't bother you either, I say, looking them straight in the eye, as long as we're making decisions for others. Leth's face changes. Anxiety shines through the mask of confidence. What do you mean? Or he asks. Exactly what I said, I reply. I'm seeing a notary tomorrow. If you can dispose of my life without my consent, then I can dispose of my property without your approval. Grandfather, don't jump to conclusions, Leth says quickly. We are doing all this for your own good. We love you and care for you. Really, Igrin, and I think you just want my house and my money, and you don't want to wait for me to die a natural death. Edberth, you misunderstand us, Lucine interjects. We do have your welfare in mind. Sun Valley is a beautiful place. You'll be happy there. Then why didn't you suggest I visit the place first? Meet the staff, see the facilities? Why the you're moving in tomorrow? They are silent, unable to find an answer because there is no answer. At least not one that would not reveal their true motives. I'm going home, I say, pulling out my wallet. How much do I owe for dinner? Grandpa, don't be silly. Leth frowns. We invited you. We're paying. And you have nowhere to go. We brought you here. I have money for a cab, I reply, placing a few bills on the table, enough to cover my portion of the bill and leave a generous tip, and a house I'll be returning to, at least for now. I turn to leave, but Lavoth grabs my arm. Grandfather, you're being unreasonable, he says. Let's discuss this. We can find a compromise. I look at his hand, clutching mine, then look up at his face. Let me go, I say quietly. Now something in my voice, in my gaze, makes him obey. He unclenches his fingers and steps back. We'll get you home, he says. At least let us do that. No, thank you, I reply. I think we all need time to think about what's really important, about what it means to be a family. I turn and walk towards the exit. I feel the stares of the other patrons. The scene hasn't gone unnoticed, but I don't care. All I'm thinking about now is what I need to do next. It's chilly outside. I button up my raincoat and walk over to the cab stand outside the restaurant. A young cab driver opens the door for me. "Where are we going, sir?" he asks. I give him my address and get in the back seat. As the cab pulls away from the restaurant, I can see through the window as Levitt and Lucine run out into the street. They're shouting and waving, but the car is already turning the corner and they're out of sight. I lean back in the seat and close my eyes. There's a strange mix of feelings inside me. The pain of betrayal, the anger, the frustration. But amidst this chaos of emotions, one clear feeling emerges. Determination. Determination not to give up, not to be victimized, not to let others decide my fate. I open my eyes and look out the window at the city floating by. McKissport is beautiful at night. The lights of the storefronts, the street lights, the illumination of the bridges, the city. I helped build and rebuild my town. "It's a beautiful night, isn't it?" says the cab driver, looking at me in the rearview mirror. "Yes," I reply. "A beautiful evening to start something new." At home, I took off my jacket, loosened my tie, and sat down in my favorite chair. My hands trembled a little, not from fear, but from tension and anger. For the first time in years, I felt the blood pulsing in my temples. Years old, and my emotions still had the power to overwhelm me. I pulled a bottle of whiskey from the bar that I kept for special occasions and poured some into a glass. I took a sip, letting the warmth of the alcohol spread through my body. Tonight was definitely a special night. It wasn't every day you found out that your closest relatives were planning to get rid of you like you were nothing. Before I could finish my whiskey, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was. I looked at my watch almost 10x at night. They didn't wait long. I didn't want to open the door, but I knew I'd have to face them sooner or later. Better now, when I was still determined, than later when doubts might begin to erode my confidence. Lev and Lucine stood on the doorstep, he frowning, showeth reened eyes as if she'd been crying. The actress, I wonder where she learned to portray emotions so convincingly. "Grandfather, we need to talk," Lev said, taking a step forward. I didn't step back, didn't invite them in. I just stood in the doorway, arms crossed over my chest. "I think we've said everything we need to say to each other," I said. "Sure what? You want me to move into a nursing home?" "I don't. You've already paid for everything. I'm going to change my will. I think the positions are clear." "You don't understand," Lucine began, but I interrupted her. "I understand perfectly well. You want my house, but you don't want to wait for me to die a natural death." "That's not fair, Ma," she exclaimed. "We care about you." "Care?" I grinned. "Finally, you won't bother us to live." "Is caring?" Lucine blushed and lowered her gaze. "That's not what she meant," Lev interjected. She didn't mean it right." "No, Lev. She said exactly what she thought she said. For the first time in all your fake care, the truth came out, and I'm grateful for that. At least now I know exactly where I stand." Levith ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he always did when he was in a quandary. I remembered him ruffling his hair like that when he was a kid, when he couldn't solve a difficult math problem. "Grandpa, you have to understand, a nursing home is not punishment. It's safety, care, companionship with people your own age. It's a prison," I objected. "Maybe with comfortable cells and polite wardens, but it's still a prison, and I'm not going to voluntarily deprive myself of my freedom." "But you're taking a risk living alone," Lucine said. "Do you know what happened to Mrs. Greenwood of Maple Street? She fell in the bathtub and lay there for 2 days before she was found, and Mr. Johnson forgot to turn off the stove and almost burned the house down. And Matthew Harrison lived to be 103 years old in his own house and died in his sleep." I interrupted her. "There are examples to fit any theory. But the fact is I've been living alone for 3 years now since Alita's gone, and I'm doing just fine." For now, yes, Left persisted. But your condition could deteriorate at any moment. Your reflexes slow down. Your memory fails. You might not notice how you're deteriorating. I gave him a long look. Son, you know, Left, that's what I was most afraid of when I got old. Not sickness, not death, but that the young would start telling me what I thought and felt. That they'd know better than I did what I needed. Asif age takes away a man's ability to understand himself. Left opened his mouth to object, but I raised my hand to stop him. I will not change my mind. I'm not going to a nursing home. And if you try to force me, I'll change my will so you won't get a dime. All my savings in my house will go to a homeless animal shelter. You can't do that, Lucine blurted out, and then bit her lip as she realized she'd given herself away. Why not? I asked calmly. It's my money in my house. I can do with it as I please. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to rest. It had been a tiring day. I started to close the door, but Lavath put his hand on it. Grandfather, you can't just kick us out. We're family. We have to work this out together. Family doesn't force each other, I replied firmly. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't throw old people away like junk. And a family certainly doesn't announce important decisions expos over a glass of champagne in a restaurant. I looked at them both. I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow if you want or not. It's your choice. This time they didn't resist. Left lowered his hand. Lucine took a step back. I closed the door and turned the key in the lock. Through the living room window, I could see them standing on the porch, arguing furiously about something. Finally, they got into the car and drove away. I doubted that was the end of it, but at least I got a break. I met the next morning with a clear head and a firm decision to act. After breakfast, I pulled out my phone book. Yes, I still use a paper phone book, not a smartphone, as Levitt insisted, and found a number I hadn't dialed in years. Obadiah Patterson had been a colleague and friend of mine since the days when we'd worked together on the waterfront redevelopment project. He was about 10 years younger than me, but we got along well. Then life divorced us. He moved to another part of town. I was immersed in family concerns after Norman died. We exchanged Christmas cards and occasionally called each other, but for the last few years, communication had been cut off. The phone was answered after the third ring. Patterson here? Came a familiar voice, a little huskier than I remembered. Obadiah, this is Edberth Bird Whistle. A pause, then a surprised Eddie. Bloody hell, it's been ages. How are you? I've been better, I answered honestly. Obadiah, we need to meet. There's a situation I need advice on. Something in my voice must have told him it was serious because he didn't ask. Sure, Eddie. When's convenient for you? The sooner the better. How about today? Come by at lunchtime, he suggested. Say 1-ish in the afternoon. I'll cook something. We'll eat. We'll talk. I wrote down the address, though I vaguely remembered the neighborhood, the eastern part of the city, closer to the park. We agreed I'd take a cab. As soon as I hung up, the phone rang again. Lucine, Edberth. I wanted to apologize for yesterday, she began without preamble. I shouldn't have said that. Left and I really care about you. Lucine, I said tiredly. Let's not pretend. You said what you thought you said. And you know what? I'm actually grateful for it. At least it's all clear now. No, you don't understand. There was a pleading tone in her voice. I was just nervous. We've been preparing for this conversation for so long, thinking so much about how best to organize your life. My life, I emphasized, not yours, mine. And it's up to me to decide how it works. But we've already posted bail, she said quietly. $15,000 non-refundable. Yeah, that's what this is about. Money. Always money. That's your problem, Lucine. I said, you made the decision without me. You deal with the consequences. But we meant well. Her voice broke into a scream. Sure did. We're tired of worrying. Tired of wondering every day if something happened to you. Tired of living in a small apartment when you have a huge house you don't need. This is it. The truth has finally come out. So, it's a house after all, I said calmly. Listen, Lucine, I understand that you and Livette want a better life. I understand that you're cramped in your apartment, but that doesn't give you the right to take over my life. You're just selfish. She lashed out. An old, stubborn, selfish man. You think only of yourself. What about us? We're young. We have our whole lives ahead of us. We want children, but we can't afford it in our tiny apartment, and you're sitting alone in a 4-bedroom house. I kept quiet, letting her talk. The words poured out more and more bitter and angry. Finally, she stopped, breathing heavily. Are you finished? I asked her. Yes, she said quietly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, I countered. And you know what? I'm glad you finally told the truth. Now we can stop pretending. You want my house. I don't want to give it up. Plain and simple. I hung up without waiting for an answer. Obadiah was waiting for me, and I didn't want to be late. The week after my meeting with Obadiah and the visit to the lawyer passed intense silence. Levitt called twice, but the conversations were short and strained. He asked if I had changed my mind about the nursing home. I said no, and that was the end of it. Lucine didn't call at all. I was busy, very busy. Together with Obadiah, we'd drawn up a plan of action, and now I was methodically executing it. The first thing I did was to visit the bank and open a new account at another branch where I transferred most of my savings. Then I met with Gerald 12 Trees, my neighbor, who had long looked at my house with interest. He has 3 grown children and 5 grandchildren, and space in his house was getting scarce. Are you serious, Ed? He asked when I offered to buy my house. Nasri, do you really want to sell? Absolutely serious, I replied. Circumstances have changed, and I can no longer stay here. I didn't go into details, but something in my tone must have told him it was serious. Is it because of Left? He asked bluntly. Maud had noticed that he and his wife had been visiting you too often lately. I nodded. They were planning to send me to a nursing home without my consent. Gerald frowned. Like the Pattersons of Maple Street. Exactly, I confirmed. But I'm not going to let them take over my life. So I'm selling the house and moving in with a friend. If you're not interested, I'll find another buyer. But I figured you and your big family. Sopran. I'm interested, Gerald said quickly. Very interested. But the price? I'm not sure I can afford the market value. I've quoted a sum well below market value, but still enough to provide me with a comfortable life for the rest of my years. Gerald looked at me with disbelief. Ed Berth, that's too generous. The house is worth much more. Perhaps, I agreed, but it's more important to me that it falls into good hands, in the hands of someone who will value it, not see it as an investment or a source of income. Gerald held out his hand to me. Deal? I'll call my lawyer today. The deal was done quickly. I insisted on speed, and Gerald, understanding the situation, didn't object. We agreed that the official handover of the house would take place a week later, the same day that Left and Lucine planned to move me to Sun Valley. While the lawyers were doing the paperwork, I quietly, without attracting attention, began to prepare for the move. I sent my most valuable possessions, pictures of Aldita and Norman, a few family heirlooms, my collection of technical reference books in small batches to Oadia's house. Therest I either sold at online auctions with the help of Maud, who was better at computers than I was, or gave to charitable organizations. The day of the move came bright and sunny, as if nature itself approved of my plan. I woke up early, made myself a last breakfast in the kitchen where I had spent so many morning hours with Alita, and waited. Lav and Lucine arrived at exactly 9 in the morning, just as they had promised in their last call. I heard their car pull up, the door slamming, Lucine's heels clacking on the driveway. Then the doorbell rang, insistent, confident. They had no doubt that I would open it. And I did. I stood in the doorway, dressed not in a housecoat, as they probably expected, but in a strict suit and tie, the same one I had worn in the restaurant. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Come in." They looked at each other, obviously puzzled by my look and tone, but they entered the house. Immediately, they noticed the change. "Grandfather, where's all the stuff?" Left asked, looking around the half-empty living room. Gone were the paintings from the walls, the figurines from the mantelpiece, half the books from the shelves. "What's going on?" "Sit down," I suggested, pointing to the couch. "I have news for you." They sat down, wary and tense. I remained standing. I wanted the benefit of height for what I was about to say. "I sold the house," I said simply. A silence hung. Lavoth and Lucine stared at me as if unable to understand the words. Serenum. "What?" Levitt finally squeezed out. How could you?" "Very simple," I answered. "I signed the papers, got the money. Just a real estate transaction." But to whom?" "Lucine. Looked like she'd been punched." "Gerald 12 Trees, my neighbor. He's got a big family, needs a big house. The deal closed yesterday, and the money's been transferred to my new account at another bank." "You couldn't have done that," Levitt exclaimed, jumping up from the couch. "This is our family home. You had no right to sell it without consulting me." "Why not?" I asked calmly. "It's my house, Lev. Was mine, to be exact. I bought it with my own money, paid the mortgage for 30 years, kept it in good condition. I had every right to dispose of it as I saw fit." "But we were counting on," Lucine began, and then she realized what she was saying. "What were you counting on, Lucine?" I asked. "That you'd put me in a nursing home and move in here, renovate like you dreamed, throw out all the old-fashioned stuff?" She turned pale and lowered her eyes. "It's not fair," she muttered. "We wanted what was best for ourselves. I finished for her, not for me. You never thought about what I want, how I felt. To you, I was just an obstacle to what you wanted to get." Left blushed with anger. "That's not true. We cared about you. We cared." "Cared enough to decide to send me to a nursing home without my consent?" I asked. "Worried enough that you never once asked me what I wanted?" "No." "Left. You only cared about yourself and the house, which is no longer yours." Lucine began to cry quietly, suppressed, but I already knew the value of her tears. "What about your things?" Left asked, looking around. "Where did they go?" "You sold some of it," I answered. "Some of it I gave to charity. I took the most valuable ones with me." "With you?" Levitt interrupted. "Where?" "I'm moving in with a friend," I said. "Obadiah Patterson. We worked together on the waterfront redevelopment project. He offered me a room in his house and I accepted. Some random old man." Lucine had stopped crying and was now looking at me with disbelief. "Instead of professional carry at Sun Valley to a friend," I corrected her, "to a man who actually cared about me, not what he could get from me." Left ran his hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture I remembered from his childhood. "What about the will?" he asked at last. "Did you change it?" "Yes," he nodded. "I made the changes last week. Anything left over after I die, including the money from the sale of the house, will go to the local technical college to establish the Alida Bird Whistle Scholarship for engineering students." "You disinherited us?" Lavoth looked like I hit him. "Your only grandson?" "I have disposed of my property as I see fit," I replied. "Just as you planned to dispose of my life without asking me." At that moment, the doorbell rang. I glanced at the clock 10:00 in the morning, just as we'd agreed. Gerald was always punctual. "Excuse me," I said, heading for the door. "This is the new owner of the house." He wanted to take another look at the place before he moved in. I opened the door. Gerald was standing on the doorstep with papers in his hands. "Good morning, Edberth," he said. "Am I interrupting anything?" "Not at all," I said. "Come in." I was just explaining the situation to my grandson and his wife. Gerald entered the house and nodded to Leth and Lucine, who stood, frozen like statues. "Good morning," he said. "Gerald 12's neighbor, now Ed's former neighbor. Did you buy our house?" Lucine asked, and there was an accusation in her voice. "I bought Ed Berth's house," Gerald corrected. "And if you don't mind, I'd like to take another look at it. My family's moving in this afternoon." "Today?" Leth interjected. "So soon?" "I have 5 grandchildren." Gerald shrugged. "They can't wait to explore the new house. They're especially interested in the attic and the garden." Leth turned to me. "Grandpa, you can't do this to us. We are your family." "Family?" I repeated thoughtfully. "You know, Levitt, I've been thinking a long time about what it means to be a family. And I came to the conclusion that it's not about blood or family name. It's about respect, caring, sincerity. It's about wanting the happiness of others, not just yourself. In that sense, you and Lucine stopped being my family a long time ago. Maybe you never were." "It's cruel," Lucine said.